March Madness has started or not started, depending on if you think the first 4 games count as the tournament. UNC under heavy scrutiny for getting into the tournament over West Virginia. It got so intense that the West Virginia governor is involved. Also, the head coach of West Virginia leaving after 1 year to go to IU, try and reestablish the former glory of this program. And then, of course, we've got a little bit of football stuff. The Cleveland Browns have announced a big announcement that's kind of controversial, and then a few other NFL things in the AFC North, the Bengals, and then to the NFC with the Vikings. A lot of good stuff today, but let's start off with some college injustice, or perhaps a perceived injustice in the world of college basketball, with poor lowly West Virginia University getting left out of the March Madness tournament in favor of North Carolina, sort of the big brand, historical blue chip, blue blood basketball university. And this is quite a controversy, okay? And we got to get your thoughts on it, but I like this a lot. This is kind of like, because I'm in the marriage mode, I'm getting ready for the wedding. UNC making the tournament is like having the bride's brother as the groomsman, okay?
UNC making the tournament is like having to have your bride's brother be a groomsman. Everybody knows they don't belong there. And it makes everyone resent them. It's already hard enough to pick who gets in and who gets out. And you're there at the wedding. You got 4 boys that thought they were going to get in, and you had to leave them out. And now they're at the wedding, and they're looking up at this guy, and they're like, how the hell did he get in there? He wasn't with us shooting in the gym. He wasn't out here running 2-a-days. He wasn't setting picks.
Okay, so we get the picture here. By the way, Mike, you can be a groomsman. I'm doing all the brothers as groomsmen. Okay.
So nice.
You're not West Virginia. Okay.
So I am invited.
You are invited. Scott, I want to get your thoughts on this, on West Virginia being left out and UNC, the big brand, getting in. Is this actually as big of an injustice as people are making it out to be?
I mean, I know the state governor is freaking out over this, calling the NCAA the National Corrupt Association of Athletics.
Yeah.
That was on his podium as he was talking about this. A very litigious individual, because he's gone after the NCAA quite a bit. Part of me understands the gripe that the state has and the gripe that the WVU fan base has, right? Because it's on the surface, we're always talking about quad 1, quad 2, quad 3, and quad 4 wins. And that's how they're breaking down like the quality of win these days. I think what really was the nail in the coffin for WVU not getting the edge and getting in was the fact that they lost in the first round of the Big 12 tournament. True. I think that right there was what ended up making them fall to UNC. And UNC honestly had a great run at the end of the year. They put the pressure on the Blue Devils. Sure. And then they played them very, very closely in the ACC tournament and lost by a fluke lane violation.
Well, also just asterisk without Cooper Flagg. Okay.
Fair. But at the same time, they competed and they saw that they were playing at a high level at the back end of the year. And I think that matters. Like, yes, the body of work matters too, but how are you playing at the moment? And what's that momentum going to be like going into the tournament? I think that's what the committee was taking into account.
Yeah, that's true.
What's more important is just the marketability. It's a business. Right. How much money do they make for this tournament? Having UNC, the fan base of UNC, it's too big. Too big to fail, as they say. You got to take advantage of that.
You're going with that approach.
You are such an elitist. Like, you have no respect for the Mountaineers of the state of West Virginia.
No, it's simple dollars and cents.
Look at this. All right. Let's just hear really quickly from the governor of West Virginia. This guy's passionate about their university sports teams. Okay, just 50 seconds of him going off on it. This thing's cut off a little bit at the bottom, but it says, like you said, Scott, National Corrupt. What did it say? National Corrupt Collegiate Association. He's taking shots. Here it is.
6.
There's an athlete.
Quad 1 wins. And that was combined with an undefeated record against quad 3 and quad 4 opponents. 3 wins against top 10 teams and the 24th toughest schedule in America. West Virginia deserved to be in the NCAA tournament. This was a miscarriage of justice and robbery at the highest levels. Now, who was the last team to get into the tournament? Ahead of the Mountaineers. That would be the University of North Carolina. Now let's see how their resume stacks up. The Tar Heels went 1-12 in quad 1 games and even had a quad 3 loss. And we keep hearing about the importance of these quad one wins, but UNC couldn't even get 6.
Okay, first of all, part of me loves this, the fact that the highest politician of the state is so passionate about the school's basketball team. West Virginia as a state doesn't have that much going on sports-wise, okay? They don't have any professional sports teams. West Virginia University is what they've got, and these people are passionate about it. So I do love the fact that the governor is out here talking about quad 1 versus quad 3 wins. Probably the only governor in the union right now talking about these. These are the important issues, by the way. But at the same time, I think he's actually opened up an investigation against the NCAA, and the Attorney General of the state of West Virginia is going to be spending time on this and looking into this. Where do you stand on that?
Yeah, like I said, he's a litigious individual. He's gone after the NCAA before, and this dude, I understand the angst and the anger coming from West Virginia fans because this is their baby. This is what they got. This is their entire fandom world and everything. So they feel slighted. And one of the things that frustrates me is just we're talking about quad wins, and he brought up, they actually had a loss in a quad 3 team. Yep. That quad 3 team was Stanford. Granted, yes, it was at home, which is a bad loss, but it was a 2-point loss, and Stanford is now in the NIT tournament. So it's not like they lost to a bum school.
And this is also like kind of a worry that you have when a team is maybe stumbling at the end of the year or picking up momentum at the end of the year. We know a lot of that comes into play in the tournament. I think also a lot of people, though, are upset about the fact that Bubba Cunningham, who is the University of North Carolina's athletic director, was the head of the selection committee. Now, he says that he stepped out of the room whenever UNC was in discussion. You can choose to believe that or not. The head of whatever way you want to slice it.
The security cameras shut off.
Yeah. Whatever way you want to look at it, it does seem a little bit strange. And so this is adding kind of gasoline on the fire of this whole thing, because if you look at it kind of casually, it looks like West Virginia got screwed. It looks like UNC got bumped up. And, that's weird that the UNC athletic director is in charge of choosing who gets to be in the tournament at these at-large bids.
Yeah. Is that really what he said? He said, I stepped out of the room?
Yeah. I wasn't even there.
That's hilarious. That is a great defense. I'm gonna start using that. I was in the bathroom when that happened.
Well, no, that was a rule. That was the person or an AD, because there were a number of ADs within that room.
Yeah.
If your school was being discussed, you had to recuse yourself of the discussion at hand. So, yes, this was the perfect storm of a situation. So, him being the committee director, UNC being on the bubble, being a blue blood program, all of these things just came together and being a terrible situation at large and a bad look for the NCAA. But I have to come to the defense of Bubba. Like, we were talking about, attacking NIL and the changes. Like, let's stop making him the scapegoat here. The issue is the way in which it's structured. Why are we building out a committee with current sitting ADs? That's more of an issue. There are other ways in which we can build this than having current sitting ADs as part of these committees.
No, I think that's a fair point. And I also kind of poke fun at the situation. I'm sure that they actually proceeded with integrity in this. And it's but it just from the outside looks funky. And you're right. Maybe there should be a different manner or a different system that they have set up here. I've got two other things on this. Okay. One, obviously at the time of us shooting this, UNC played San Diego State and absolutely demolished them in that first 4 game. I want to get your thoughts on this. Does this matter? So this person says here on Twitter, for those just listening, whatever happens with North Carolina tonight and in the tournament has zero to do with whether the Heels should have been in. A win validates nothing. A loss invalidates nothing. This is the NCAA tournament. Please don't try to make sense of it. What do you guys think? Do you think that that's actually fair? That's okay. We watched them smack the other team, San Diego State, and be like, okay, looks like they kind of do belong in the tournaments, and maybe that decision, controversial or not, made sense. What do you think?
Well, yeah, the way this guy is setting it up is just saying it doesn't matter what happens from this point on, this decision of getting him in or not. It was wrong from the beginning, and it doesn't matter how anything happens, what happens after that. I think that's completely wrong. I think the beauty of this is the fact that, hey, okay, you got in. You better prove that you are worthy of being in. So go get the W. And that actually adds so much more weight to North Carolina and their determination and everything pushing them forward. And it actually adds some level of like depth and meaning to the wins other than just people's random money that's put out there on these bets and so on and so forth. So like, I actually love the idea of, hey, Tar Heels, you guys better get to at least the second round, if not the Sweet 16, to prove that you belong.
I kind of feel like they're going to go on a little bit of a run simply because they've got a lot of bulletin board material now of everyone.
North Carolina against the world.
Okay. The Ohio guy just has to go against the world. UNC versus the world. Well,
How motivating is that bulletin board material? Did you guys have that in college? We'd post that up. They put it in the locker room before games of things that coaches said bad about us. I always walked by. I never cared enough to read a whole article and see what people said.
Too much reading. Hey, Scott, my coach in college talked trash about you guys. It was one of the greatest motivational speeches. Georgetown versus Yale, okay? And I cannot repeat what he said, but it was one of the few times I've been highly motivated by a football coach's pregame speech. And we went out and lost.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Every time we played.
But we lost with passion.
We lost with passion, and I personally had a great game, which is all that matters.
That's all that matters.
That's all that matters.
When you have a really good game and you lose, it's fine because you could just be like, "Wasn't my fault."
Exactly.
It's almost better.
It's almost better. I would much rather me personally play great and lose than us win and me not have a very good game.
Yeah, see, we left our bulletin board stuff for the Ivy League teams, not the out of conference guys.
Speaking of which, Scott,
yeah.
what the Ivy League? Our interaction on Twitter X, okay, where you posted the clip of Ivy League basketball, and you guys had the biggest logo I've ever seen on not just a basketball court, but on any sort of sport playing field. Just the Ivy League. It's like, yeah, we get it. It's the Ivy League. You don't have to make the logo 40 times bigger than every other logo just because it's the Ivy League. Okay, Scott, I'm a little bit offended by that size.
It's reminiscent of the CYO basketball courts that are way too small. They're not regulation size, and you have like center court touching the top of the 3-point line on each. So like that's what we were trying to. We were just is nostalgia. We were trying to and reimagine that.
That was nostalgic as hell, okay? So nobody forget about the Ivy League. All right, one other thing on this West Virginia-UNC thing, because West Virginia is not just upset about the situation of them getting left out of the tournament, but also their coach is leaving after 1 year. Darian DeVries, and this is a West Virginia dude. He has got some fiery words to say about it.
Darian DeVries is a coward, and West Virginia is better without him.
Coward.
Might seem harsh, but there's one thing I've learned hosting Locked On Big 12. West Virginia is blue collar. They are coal miners. They are people who do more with less and give you the shirt off their back. They don't run at the first thought of making millions of dollars. They don't abandon what they're building. They don't leave in the middle of the night for a better opportunity. They stay home to make their home a better place. What West Virginia needs is a coach in every sport that embodies who the state is, who they are. Blue collar, those who will turn down, quote, better opportunities to stick to West Virginia and make things in that state as good as they can be because they're proud to be the head coach at West Virginia. They're proud to be from the state of West Virginia. Darian DeVries left in 1 year. He wasn't that. He wasn't going to be that. Oh, thanks for a great year. I don't care. Cowards move to leave at the first sight of more money. He's not going home. He's going to Indiana. Why? More money, more status. West Virginia doesn't need that. West Virginia needs a mountaineer in every sport. That's who they've got to get. That's who I hope they get. And thank God he's gone because he's not West Virginia.
Okay.
Yeah, you shouldn't take more money to provide a better life and education for your family. That's stupid.
You should just stay in West Virginia your whole life. I'm sorry to our West Virginian viewers. I don't mean to offend you. Calling him a coward is a little bit extreme. I would say, like, on one hand, I understand that I do agree with certain points, like with a school like West Virginia. I mean, I think they really benefit. We've seen some fiery, passionate individuals, including the governor, including this guy here, who are really, really into West Virginia, and they want their school to be represented by people who kind of fit that culture. And DeVries leaving after 1 year, they feel, doesn't do that. But also, how you can't really hate on a guy for taking a kind of a step up in the coaching world, can you?
I mean, it's got to. I think it's got to be nearly impossible to find a guy who's not going to take those opportunities. I mean, how tough would it be to find a guy who's that loyal to a program that he's going to deny his career essentially in a way?
It would have to be a guy that played at West Virginia or something.
Yeah.
Born and raised.
Yeah, but coming into the defense of West Virginia, it's not as though it's a bum program. Like they actually do have some history and some quality. And while Indiana, much like Georgetown right now, is just living off the fumes of the past, it hasn't been relevant since early 2000s. Like they've tried so many different coaches, so many different cycles to reinvigorate that program, and it's just fallen absolutely dead flat. And so that's a program. So I don't even know if it's like a step up in terms of your career, right? Sure. The opportunities you have at West Virginia are just as great, if not better, because you're in the Big 12. You're fighting for a spot. You actually played quite well this year. You have that history to lean on, and it's much more recent history. Like I get why the West Virginia fan base is so pissed off because, like, dude, this guy was only there for a year. He popped over here from Drake after 6 seasons at Drake, doing pretty well. I think he had like 150 wins at Drake, 55 losses, had 20 plus win seasons each of those years at Drake. So he's like built a program there and has been willing to do that. I think the step up from Drake to West Virginia was a step in the right direction for his career. I think what he's doing is stepping into a quagmire at Indiana, one that has not been able to figure it out for quite some time. And you have high expectations that are very hard to meet at a program that is disorganized, like very similar to the Jets in that regard. It's like, okay, everybody expects the Jets to be relevant, but dude, it's a dumpster fire. So I get the money, but at the same time, like, dude, the dollar stretches way farther in West Virginia than it does in other states. So you're still getting millions upon millions of dollars, but like, is that going into the factor of his decision? I don't know. And leaving after a year is a little suspect. Especially when a year ago you're sitting there and saying, this is my dream job. I want to be here. I want to rebuild this program. I want to do all this stuff. So like to Mikey's, your point that you've made before about college coaches. Yeah. This seems to be right step line of him taking advantage of kids that he's promised things to.
Fair. That is a great point. That is something I do despise about that kind of move of coaches using kids as a launching pad. That is pretty evil. All right. You got me there.
Okay. I'm just going to bounce now to the program with a lot more history. And Indiana, you're right. Indiana is a quagmire. That's a great word for this. But there is actually a big opportunity to be kind of the guy that restores a program to its past glory. Like you said, hey, and that was like a personal shot at me that we've been trying to do this at Georgetown for years, and it sucks. You can't do it. Look at St. John's, though. Okay, Rick Pitino going there and kind of restoring them to their past glory. And now they're coming into this as a 2 seed. And now he's kind of at the – I mean, I know he's won national championships and been a big name before. Yeah. But St. John's now is back in the conversation. And if DeVries can do that at Indiana, what an opportunity it is. Okay, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, yeah, I would agree with you. Okay, if you can – breathe renewed life into a fan base that is just super hungry, that's had history and just wants to see their team win again, that's great. But at the same time, if you look at West Virginia and how loyal, like we heard in that video right there, how loyal that fan base is, it's like, if you win there, you will be a king in that state forever. And it's like, you're going to get the same adulation, the same sort of like, I don't even know how to put it, but you're going to get the same sort of backing and loyalty from that fan base that you would probably experience, but it's probably a little more fickle in a place like in Indiana because they're expecting that stuff to happen right now. And you're just another guy that could potentially do it, but might not. So it's like, I think loyalty, I think that same sort of love and loyalty would come if he were to stay and remain in West Virginia. It would actually be far deeper than just the surface level. Because at the end of the day, this is speculation, but the people of IU fandom, they don't care if it's Jim or George who's taking them to prominence. Like that's not a thought in their mind. They just care if the team wins. But at West Virginia, I get the sense that it's so forgotten of a community and of a state and of a people. And as this guy's talking about, like they just have such a way of living their life and approaching things that if you are the guy to bring them to prominence, they would actually point to you as being the guy to do it and not just a body.
Yeah. I mean, I would love for West Virginia to find a coach, like get a coach who comes there and is there for a decade and a half or 2 decades, like they're Mike Krzyzewski, who comes there and is like really feels a part of the program and the culture and actually the state in a way that a coach like Coach K did in Duke in the state of North Carolina. And I mean, DeVries is obviously not that guy. West Virginia, I mean, I sounded a little bit harsh on the state there. They deserve that because these are kind of like the backbone of the United States. And these people deserve to have a good coach that is loyal to their program and doesn't leave after 1 year. And they also deserve to maybe be in the NCAA tournament over North Carolina. Okay?
You gotta finish strong, man.
Is West Virginia really more blue collar than Indiana? Indiana seems like pretty blue collar.
Like Indiana has cities like Indianapolis. Okay?
Yeah.
Name me a city in West Virginia, Mike.
I'm blue collar. I worked for Columbia Steel on an assembly line for months. Okay, I know blue collar.
You are literally wearing a white collar. You coastal elitist. What were you gonna say, Scott?
I was gonna say that, it's apples to oranges. I mean, Indiana is definitely part of the Midwest Rust Belt and everything like that, but the roots of the steel mills and everything really stretch from Ohio, Pennsylvania, West Virginia. That was like the bedrock of like blue collar back in the formulating days of America.
Yeah, I actually have something to say about that a little bit later when we touch on the NFL stuff, something that's maybe not fitting on brand with your guys' Rust Belt states. Okay, we do have to. I mean, we
curious.
Yeah, well, look at me. I'm a storyteller. I'm planting seeds. Okay, if you want
Storyteller.
to film school for 3
Storyteller.
months. All right.
Well, the payoff better be good, Nick.
Oh well, now the pressure's on.
Bring me along.
Not gonna be very good. Okay. We did have the first 4 games start last night, and this is just like, this is why this stuff is so good. St. Francis and Alabama State in the first 4 games. The last couple
seconds left, and here we go. This is where dreams are made. They're going for it all. Simpson, home run play, the deflection. Oh,
unbelievable. And I don't know what sort of defense St. Francis was in. Man, cover 0. They were blitzing. They could not cover the deep ball.
Yeah, I think it was the blitz. I think
could not cover the deep ball here, and Alabama State able to hit that buzzer beater right here. But this is just the kind of stuff that's so cool. It's like these two kind of not very blue chip programs starting us off, kicking us off right with March Madness and all the emotion that comes with it. What do you think, Scott?
I love that this was game 1 and this is how it ended, but it's very clear that none of those guys have ever played football. You can't let the dude get behind you, let alone 3 of them.
Yeah.
So none of these guys had any DB experience.
This is no tip drill.
No tip drill.
It's like,
but this is the perfect way to start off March Madness.
One of the most exciting plays you could have in basketball right here. Wouldn't you agree?
I would. Buzzer beater, Hail Mary.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay. It's because it looks like a football play. That's why. The best plays in basketball, the most exciting to watch, are those that mimic football.
Yeah.
Okay. That's my joke. It's not a real shot at basketball. That's my joke.
I'm surprised, Mikey, that you made this joke and Scott didn't try and find some way to make basketball into rugby. We still got some more show left. Maybe he'll be able to do it. But you're right, Mike. You're right. A good Hail Mary in basketball. Okay, so that's kicked us off. This has been kind of really controversial, really upsetting people. Okay, there are 16 teams in the SEC, all right? And 14 of them made the NCAA tourney. 14 of the 16. And the only 2 in the SEC that didn't make the tourney are LSU and South Carolina. This is an NCAA record right here, obviously. So, but people are understandably kind of upset by this because a lot of those are at-large bids, of course. Okay, so I think, what is it, 31 or 32 conferences? You win your conference, you get in automatically. The remaining half, the teams that get selected into this tournament, are at-large, chosen by Bo Cunningham himself. That's why he chose UNC, of course. Scott hates my shots. Okay. What do you guys think of this? That this person right here, for those just listening, says money rules college sports. This is so damn dumb. Do you guys feel any of this with all these SEC teams getting into the tournament?
It's a striking number. So I do bristle at the number specifically, but when you get down to the quality of basketball, we're just in a new era of NIL and that shift and money dumped into the programs and so on and so forth. It's like when push comes to shove, the quality of product on the court is going to be much higher than if we just give people, participation trophies and let them into the tournament because we feel pity for them or want them to get a chance. Like it's this weird sort of situation. Cause we all want to see the Cinderella stories and we all want to see those come to the forefront and everything like that. But I don't get the sense that that's going to happen when you receive, say you're like ranked 70th in the net rankings and you aren't selected based off of a SEC team who's 71st. Like I get it. It sucks, but it's part of just the reality of the game. Like they've generally had a more difficult season based off of the competition that they play in conference and probably out of conference schedule and everything like that. And the chances are that they're going to be able to go out there and compete at a higher level night in and night out. So the number is striking for sure, but I don't disagree with it.
I mean, the number is very striking. It's like there's 32 conferences and damn near 25% of the teams that are participating in this tournament are coming from one conference. That's not to say that they don't deserve to be in. I mean, I'm sure you can make the case for certain ones that, okay, maybe they're kind of borderline, maybe they shouldn't have been in. But the SEC was clearly the most dominant conference in college basketball this year. Does it not concern you, though, that this tournament that's supposed to be kind of like the great equalizer for college basketball and all these kind of mid-major schools get the opportunity to come in and maybe you can go on a run? And we talked about it last week, how that's actually what's so special about March Madness in the NCAA tournament. Does it not concern you that we now have 1/4 of the teams from one conference?
Yeah, it's slightly concerning, but I still think the fact that there are automatic bids cuts against that. I think the automatic bidding, there have been years where like conference champions probably don't deserve it. And, I think they've hedged as well as they possibly could in as much of a realistic way as they possibly could in allowing those automatic bids for many of the smaller conferences to get a chance. I think what they could do is just tighten maybe in certain conferences, maybe tipping the cap to say mid-majors. I think the WCC, while I may be biased, is high quality basketball. I think they're usually like 4 teams deep because right now they have USF is in the NIT tournament. Yep. Santa Cruz is in the NIT tournament. You have St. Mary's in the tourney and has been for years, going on, like 6-7 years in a row. Right. You have Gonzaga, who's been a perennial tournament contender and also national championship contender. So like there are conferences that aren't in the Big Four that probably deserve a little more credit and credence. And then you look at like the Big East, I mean, and its depth as well. Like it's just such a strange situation right now with NIL and the shifting of talent because it just changes from year to year. So I don't want to like pinpoint this year. If this happens like 5 years in a row, 3 years in a row, then this is, I think, more of an issue than just this one blip on the radar situation.
Okay, that's fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I think what the WCC they had what is like the most that they have had in the tournament? They've got 2 this year. What's the most they've ever had? Do you know?
I think most may have been 4, but I wouldn't be able to pinpoint the year because BYU was in the WCC for a few years there in the mid 2010s. But most recently, they had 3 with USF, St. Mary's, and Gonzaga. I think it was 3 years ago in the tournament.
Yeah, true. Okay. But okay, we're talking about there is a little bit of also a weird trend in college basketball, and that is the fact that 100% of national championships since 1997 are located east of this line. All of our college basketball dominance in this generation, like this entire generation. Mikey, what year were you born? 98? This is
98.
Mikey, you have never experienced a college basketball national champion west of that line. I know that breaks your heart. Why do you guys think that this is?
Wait, is this saying that there hasn't been so like UCLA didn't win it? Hold on, I need to double check this.
Where's the Mississippi River again?
It's damn near right there. No, UCLA hasn't won since. Let me see when they last.
Kevin Love, no, and Brody.
Hold on. Let me see.
That's actually crazy. Why is the East Coast so good?
I guess they didn't win. They lost to Florida.
Yeah. Okay, that's what it was. Okay.
Okay.
And obviously, the eastern part of the United States is much more concentrated population-wise, and the distribution of population skews this way, of course. But it is still like a little bit weird to see. We see some of these you'd expect, like you just thought, Scott, like UCLA, no, Arizona, no, like some of these schools out west that are just unable to compete when it comes to the national champion.
Here's a theory, okay? Because the populations are so much more concentrated over here, all these players that are growing up in more tightly bunched cities, it's so much easier to get pickup games going. They're always repping growing up. They have so many people. Pickups are always going. West Coast, everyone's spread out. You gotta make a bunch of calls, try to get everybody together. You're not getting as much reps in. So then it trickles up into the players at college level and comes out.
There's actually, I know you're half joking.
I'm half joking, but there's something there.
Something to that, because I was just listening to somebody talking about Rick Pitino and St. John's and kind of how he's able to, why it's so cool. And we're seeing, people like this city of New York really embrace St. John's because they're playing basketball that is very culturally on brand for New York pickup basketball, like really, really intense defense. They're one of the worst three-point shooting teams in the country, might be the worst, but they're known for having this very intense Rick Pitino defense that feels very New York pickup basketball. And so there is something to that.
Yeah.
You want kids that grew up playing with a chain net. That's what you want.
Because I know someone's good at basketball. Yeah. Cloth net or chain net?
Who really had to
chain net and a double rimmed double rim.
Yeah.
You have to really seriously. You have to develop such a precise shot.
That's true. Plus, you're fighting the wind and the elements. Like you're having to calculate so many other factors into your shot.
Exactly.
Look, I think there's definitely something to this. To Mikey's point about population density and everything like that, I think we also have to take into consideration what the college and program density is on the East Coast versus the West Coast, and what that ratio is for national champion versus how many are there actually have or actually are. So I'd like to see how that shakes out and see is the West Coast really less dominant, or if based off of the numbers, is the East Coast just outperforming because they have so many more schools there, and it would make sense that they would be the ones winning on this side of the Mississippi. So that's one thing. And then secondarily, I think we see this too in football. There are different regions that play football differently. There's speed, there's strength. We've talked about it before. The South, insane speed, insane size. I don't know why they have the best of both worlds in that regard. But then there's Big Ten football, which is up in the Rust Belt and everything. It's more ground and pound, not high flying. They have to deal with the elements, so they have to learn how to play the game in a different way and different style that lends toward their just builds and population and demographics and all that kind of stuff. And then you have the West Coast, which is cut, California and the rest. That's what I would say. I think that also exists, as Mikey's saying, with basketball. And it's very, very real, regardless of them being outside or inside. I think it's just different styles of play lend toward different levels of basketball and how it actually comes out in the woodwork. So I think a certain type of offense in the Pacific Northwest could dominate across the country, but then in college ball, it might be vastly different, that a faster, run the court style would change things as opposed to slowing it down, half court offense, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting. Actually, I was looking. I don't know if I saved it. Maybe on one of the other episodes we can go into deep dive on it. But it was basically a chart that showed the speed of play for all the teams that are in the tournaments, of basically how many basketball possessions they create or have each game. And what it breaks down to is how fast they play basketball. And the team that is the fastest pace of play in the NCAA tournament this year is Alabama. And so this also, it's interesting when you look at this to see kind of how teams can adapt. They say you want to have a team that can be kind of in the middle there, that they can play fast or they can play slow, sort of to adapt to whoever they're playing and not only rely on one way of playing basketball. But I want to find that, because we got to go into that. We can really dissect that. And it's kind of really interesting. Speaking of culture, okay? So obviously the tournament's starting tomorrow, all right? We're going to be talking a lot more NCAA basketball.
Disrespect in the first four. The disrespect.
What? Who's
started?
Okay, that does not count. That's the pre-tournament. It's literally the first four. That does not count. Okay. Do you think the teams that lost in the first four be like, yeah, we made the tournament? Do they feel like that?
Yeah, they did.
They made the first four. It's different.
Asterisk.
Yeah, I made the tournament asterisk. There we go.
The pre-tournament.
I made the tournament. More or less.
More or less. Yeah, more or less. Okay, we're talking about culture here, and watch and learn my storytelling techniques, the breadcrumbs that I placed earlier, okay? Because there's a big announcement, Scott, coming from your culture, the people of your culture, the Rust Belt, Midwest, Cleveland Browns have announced that they are going to develop a new indoor closed stadium. Now, this is very fancy. This is a minute and a half, but it's basically showing this is going to be their new stadium complex, okay? And they really tease us the entire time, and then they finally show us at the end, indoor here, the Cleveland Browns playing football. I mean, that does look nice as hell, okay? Cannot argue with that. It's supposed to be one of the most expensive, state-of-the-art new facilities in the NFL. My question to you, Scott, Mikey, you as well, okay? This feels like a sin. The AFC North plays football outside. This is part of the identity and the culture of those teams and that division. No matter how good that stadium looks, it feels wrong to me. I'm not a Browns fan though, Scott. What do you think?
You're hitting the nail on the head. This is disgusting. A new world-class enclosed stadium the Dog Pound deserves. Dude, how about W's? We deserve W's. Put the money toward the roster and actually think through how you're going to get wins on the field. No fan of the Browns gives a about this. Like, they only care about the product on the field. They will go and play the game or cheer on the game in a freaking parking lot. They don't care. They just want to see the team win and actually get to the Super Bowl, bring that trophy home. Like, all of this stuff, this feels way too SoFi, way too LA to me, and it's not fitting with the culture, as you're saying. And look, yeah, obviously they'll love it, but the best tweet I saw about this is like, oh yeah, this going 5-12 in this environment is going to hit different. Like, that's essentially what it is. It's like, yo, you guys got your priorities in the wrong spot. Clearly, you're functioning, or you're making all these decisions and functioning like a business as opposed to like caring about the actual product that you're putting on the field. So that's the one thing that's really going to help your business is actually winning, not building a damn stadium.
That's the thing. I mean, we see people, if your team is winning, they will go to the games, whether it's rain or shine. And okay.
Sorry. I'm still worked up here. And I was talking about loyalty of the West Virginia Mountaineers and their fans. Like, this is the same sort of loyalty that the Browns fans have. They've been coming in the most abysmal years, going 1-15, 1-16, all this kind of stuff. And they've been going through the terrors of just Cleveland weather and the weather coming off the lake and everything. And they love it. They love just everything about the Browns, and they want to see, in the worst way, they want to see success, and they're willing to just go out there and eat it every year because of the decisions that are made in the front office and on the field. Like, this is so frustrating. The loyalty is what needs to be, revered and honestly honored at this point.
Well, here's the thing. Okay, you guys are saying that the weather, they own the weather and they use it to their advantage. They're not really winning in that weather. So it's not like it's really an advantage to them. Maybe the indoor controlled environment could help them because the other way isn't really an advantage to them.
Well, even when they play away in domes, they're not winning. So I don't think that holds true. I think the decisions they're making in the roster, the coaching, all the other things that actually matter to the game are what they're not doing right.
Well, at least they signed back Miles.
Yeah. But I will say, seeing that stadium, I would go to a Browns game in that stadium. I'd pay $15 for a hot dog in that stadium. It's cool. I love walking around. I love new construction like that. It does. I don't care how much it costs the taxpayer.
It does look very, very inviting. But Mike, I knew you're going to love this because it's a beautiful, brand new, shiny stadium. Very, very, very. I mean, you're in California.
Novelty.
Love novelty. on one hand, I can admire the stadium, and I think it is cool that human beings kind of these are sort of our cathedrals nowadays. Which on one hand is a little bit sad, but at least that human beings are still coming together to build these incredible structures that other generations will admire for years to come, hopefully. But the Cleveland Browns, man, belong outside. The entire AFC North belongs outside. This is the argument that we had multiple times on this show of what makes some of these football teams special, and how the AFC North teams fit their cities better than teams in any other division in football. And now the Cleveland Browns, this is just off brand to me. And I know, Scott, you're upset. Maybe 5-12 next year, and I don't even know if you guys are going to get 5 wins. I don't even know who the quarterback is going to be. Okay. But you're going to be warm. How about that?
You're going to be warm from the liquor coat you're going to be wearing anyway. So it doesn't matter to these fans. It doesn't matter to these fans at all.
Shout out to Cleveland Browns fans. I hope that maybe that does something for you guys. At least you got Myles Garrett for cash. You guys are not the only one, even in your division, that are strapped for cash. Okay, so the Cincinnati Bengals are paying 2 wide receivers big money. They obviously got the Jamar Chase contract done. He's the highest paid non-quarterback. Just as Myles Garrett's come out, then they top it by $500,000 a year. And then T. Higgins also signed to the Bengals. The Bengals are going to have a $17 budget for their defense in the coming years. It's going to be brutal. What do you think of this take? Your QB is overrated if you have to pay 2 wide receivers that much money, by the way. Obviously, this person taking a shot at Joe Burrow. I'll bite my tongue here. Give me your thoughts on this.
Ooh. I think this works for a number of other quarterbacks, but I'm not sure it necessarily works for Joe Burrow. He's proven to be elite. And I think that's what they're seeing right now is they have an elite quarterback and they need to get him weapons right now. And what's crazier is that Trey Hendrickson still has the sack king of this past season, still has a year left on his contract. Obviously, he's requested a trade because he's seen the writing on the wall that this organization is not willing to pay him specifically, but historically, they haven't been willing to pay anybody until these two and Joe Burrow. And it's clear that they've made their decision that defense isn't a priority for them in the immediate term. So it's going to be interesting to see how this whole Trey Hendrickson thing shakes out. But I do have to say, the last time they went to the Super Bowl, and yes, it was with Joe Burrow and a terrible offensive line, and he got him there and all that kind of stuff, was the first year with Trey Hendrickson. And I think like what they're doing right now is honestly spitting in the face of what got them there in the first place, which, could be the defensive side of the ball. And this is going to be an interesting experiment. I don't think we've seen a team really go all in on offense like this before.
Yeah, I wanted to look at some of the numbers. It's like, what is with the AFC North in these extreme positions of only paying one side of the ball? Then you got the Bengals doing this on offense. The Steelers historically have been like 70% of their salary cap going to defense. It's like, guys, let's have a little balance here going on in the AFC North. But yeah, I'm with you there. You can't that's tweet is unfair to Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow was very vocal about wanting to get these guys signed back, but it wasn't, it was more, it felt cultural also that these guys have been together for a long time. They have a great relationship, and it basically signals, okay, we want to keep our stars here. We don't want to let them go away. And it just so happens that their stars are on the offensive side of the ball, hold for Trey Hendrickson, who should be taken into consideration here. But I'm not sure. Part of me feels like the Bengals window is closed, like it closed in that Super Bowl, and now they're just kind of chasing it. So I don't feel so confident. I mean, are they going to be able to score 50 points a game? Because that's what they're going to have to do with the possible defense that they're going to put on the football field.
This tweet seems more like a fitting criticism, not actually an accuracy, but fitting in the sense that this is the perception for Brock Purdy.
Oh,
like this is the type of thing people will say about Brock Purdy just because that's what everybody says, even though it's not true. Yeah. And I don't think it's fair to put it on Joe Burrow. I don't think it's fair to put it on Brock Purdy, but it's more aligned with.
And also, Brock Purdy, I mean, we're going to see what goes on there with Brock Purdy with his contract with the 49ers. Like, they're going to look a lot different. They did sign Juszczyk back, though, the 49ers.
Yeah.
Like, everyone was
They got him back?
devastated. They got him back. Devastated, so sad. They're just like, what is going on? And they signed him back like 2 days later.
Listen, about earlier. That was a clerical mistake. That was Cheryl in accounting. That wasn't us.
That was not our doing. Okay, and then another team in the North, the NFC North. How about that? The Vikings have officially, I believe, this was actually just breaking right before we started recording. They are not going to pursue Aaron Rodgers. Apparently, Aaron Rodgers was holding out to see what the Vikings wanted to do. Obviously, you had the Giants, the Steelers, and potentially the Vikings here. They were like, guess you really wanted the Vikings. 1, to play for Kevin O'Connell. 2, to fulfill the prophecy of Brett Favre. And it's not going to work out. Now, I guess they're going to go with J.J. McCarthy. I'm not sure how I feel about this. I mean, he is unproven, coming off an injury. What do you think here?
Godspeed to the Minnesota Vikings. I don't understand this thinking, and I understand there's a lot of baggage, whether it's deserved or not, which I think it's the latter. It's not deserved. Coming with Aaron Rodgers, I think what they could have done with him behind center and O'Connell on the headset would have been insane. Yeah. And that's not even to mention JJ and Addison, like who they have as weapons. We're talking about duos over at the Bengals and that wide receiver core. The Vikings are insanely stacked on offense. And I get it. Those guys can elevate what will be a rookie JJ McCarthy in his first year, and maybe help him develop quicker than most. If you want JJ to truly succeed, I don't understand why you wouldn't go with the arch rivals of the Green Bay Packers process and getting Aaron in the building for 2 years, 3 years maybe, having JJ learn under him so that when he comes out and steps foot on that field, the dude is absolutely ready. So I think they're taking a big risk here and skipping on Aaron.
I know. I would have loved to see that because, JJ McCarthy, granted, he was injured last year, and then he was also behind Sam Darnold. And Sam Darnold, although he did have a great season last year and he went and earned that other contract with the Seahawks, he's not that veteran presence, that veteran experience that a guy like Aaron Rodgers is. That I think a young quarterback like JJ McCarthy would really benefit from being in the room with, at least for a year or so. So I'm a little bit surprised. I mean, I guess they think that JJ McCarthy's ready to be a starter. I mean, they've seen stuff internally. I just don't know, because even when he was at Michigan, he barely threw the football. He threw like 15 times a game.
There's something to say about this. Is like, I've only ever heard really good things about JJ, and that's a great thing, right? You could be like, okay, I fully believe that, but at the same time, there's a nugget of suspicion. It's just like, okay, this sounds too good to be true that he's all of a sudden the second coming, and like, I didn't necessarily see that in college, nor do I think anybody really saw that or thought that when he was playing. Granted, the caveat to all of that is Tom Brady. Nobody ever thought that for him, and then ultimately he became what he became. So I don't know. I still take this all with a grain of salt with JJ hype and all that. I still think they missed the boat on this, and the option and opportunity to really, really develop him so that he is ready when he steps foot on the field.
Yeah,
JJ's got a mean handoff.
That mesh point.
The other thing for Aaron, he's got to go back to the beach and do some more pondering, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, nobody ponders as aesthetically interesting as Aaron Rodgers. I mean, that photo, hang it in the Louvre. I mean, it says something. Okay, last thing here. This is just a little fun. This is sort of just a grab bag here, because this is kind of going around. DK Metcalf on the basketball court. Okay, I want to get your guys' thoughts. People, there's always this conversation. This is like with, as kids, could NFL players play in the NBA, or could an NBA player play in the NFL? And we're seeing DK Metcalf on here just with this very impressive, very easy dunk, looking like a elite athlete. But what do you think? What is more likely, that an NFL player could actually play and make it in the NBA, or vice versa?
NFL and NBA, I think is so much easier. Just like mentality-wise, toughness-wise, and the ability to adapt. I think that NBA guys trying to come to the world of football would struggle heavily. Maybe if they put on weight, became a tight end or a D end, but outside of that, What are they going to do?
Holder.
I think. Look, I think across the board, skill positions from football can probably translate to basketball at a high level much easier, especially if they focused and trained specifically for that sport for give them like 6 months or to a year. And I think they could really perform at a high level. One, because as Mikey's speaking to, they have just a different sort of mode and mindset in the way in which they approach competition. They have a different set of aggression. They have a different way of like moving strictly because of that aggression and the way that they've been formed in the game of football that I think would be so shocking to a lot of NBA players in that aggression level of things that we talk about effort and how that is such a huge thing in football. I think that would be incredibly jarring, even to the best of NBA players. I think it'll be difficult with a guy like Kyrie who has stupid handles, but if you put Jalen Ramsey on Kyrie, I'm pretty sure he can hang with him like just hip to hip, like the dude's footwork's insane.
Exactly. I think some of these corners could really kind of lock down some of these elite basketball players. Also, you can just try hard in basketball, and it makes up for a lot of lack of skill or talent. You can be very ferocious on defense with high effort and drive somebody crazy. And I think that football players mentally maybe have a little bit more of that. Whereas I don't know if a power forward, but what are you going to contribute on the football field?
Yeah, exactly. And we've seen like the bad boys of the NBA. We've heard of the stories of like even Draymond Green trying to play football at Michigan State. And the guys on the football team at that time, the stories that have come out of that were kind of just like, yeah, I mean, he was an athlete, but like it's different. Like you can throw a guy. It's the same thing with the track guys. They could be the fastest dude on the track. You throw them on a football field, they get hit once, they get jammed once, they can't do shit. So it's the same sort of thing with like if you try and translate NBA players. Yeah, they may be really athletic, but put them in a different environment, that athleticism doesn't translate or come out as it does on the basketball court. So also, I think there's an issue here is like people think, okay, when we're talking about NFL players going to the NBA, we're not expecting them to be Russell Westbrooks in their prime or like Derrick Roses in their prime necessarily. We're expecting them to be more along the lines of, could they be Dennis Rodman? Yeah, dude. Or Ben Wallace? Yeah.
Oh, Ben Wallace, man. Ben Wallace, our brother Joey had his poster up in his room. There is one exception for this, however. Have you ever seen Allen Iverson's high school football highlights?
Yeah, dude.
Those are unbelievable. He was an insane quarterback. And Allen Iverson
there are some guys who could translate, I think, but that's only because they played at a high level in high school and had to choose at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. If you had to choose. Also, I mean, there was always this argument, LeBron when he was younger, like if he could be a wide receiver, but I mean, I'm sure he could. I don't know how fast is he? Like, what's it? I feel like he's like a 4.8.
He's too soft. The guy's flopping on the basketball court. He can't handle football. Are you kidding me?
It's true. However, do we not have some prima donna soft wide receivers in the NFL?
Yeah, that's true. He could be a receiver. He has a fitting personality for that.
He's definitely a tight end size, but I don't think he has. Okay, the best apples to apples you would have would be like Megatron, Calvin Johnson in terms of size, because I think Calvin was 6'6". So like that's a close equivalent to what LeBron could have been. But I don't think he would be the guy to have the gnarled hands of Calvin Johnson if you've ever seen those. Like to Mikey's point, I don't know if he has that sort of. That's not the cut of his jib. Let's just put it that way.
Cut of his jib.
Well said.
Also, I just looked it up while you're talking. Calvin Johnson ran a 4.35 40.
Wild.
So at that height and weight, I don't see LeBron with the burners like that. So
he ran it in 15 steps.
Yeah.
Crazy. So the age-old debate, we have come to the conclusion there. Some NFL players could play in the NBA. Very few NBA players could play in the NFL. Is that our stance?
Yes.
Very good. Okay. So the NCAA tournament officially starts tomorrow because the first four doesn't count in my eyes, and we're very excited about that. We're sad for West Virginia.
Wait, so if it doesn't count, why is everybody up in arms about UNC making the part of the tournament that doesn't count?
Well, they won, so now they're in the tournament.
Oh, okay. But prior to that, they were really mad.
Well, they were mad because they were talking about it's a different thing. first because they had the potential. Because they had the potential to get.
Oh.
Okay.
Everybody has the potential at the start of the year.
Okay. Now you're the one that wants to hand out all the trophies. Here's a potential trophy.
No, you finish strong, you get in.
That was me last week. This week, Scott's the participation trophy guy. Great. All right. We'll talk deeper on our brackets and the tournament come Friday. We'll be watching ball, talking ball. All right, everybody. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.